In today's video, we're going to talk about how the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, was able to keep me and other January 6 defendants in a higher security prison, even though we should have been in a camp. Somebody like me who has no criminal history was held behind razor wire, and they had to justify this somehow. And I know most people were not able to dig into finding out why and how, but I was during my prison stay. So if you've watched my other video, you've seen how I documented things and how I have a folder that I made into a file. Well, out of that folder and file, I have pulled this out to share with you today. This is custody classification. This is a section in BOP policy that would apply to any federal inmate. And people can look this up online. Inmates in prisons, they can look up policy in the law library. And once they understand policy, they can file AR forms, administrative remedy forms, to try to fix issues that they're having. So I was curious during my stay, why are they holding me here? Why am I not in a camp? Why am I behind razor wire? Where I'm being locked in a cell for at least 11 to 12 hours a day, at least. Totally micromanaged. Most of my time spent indoors, where I could only move to another building during certain time frames. Oh, this is Betsy. Say hi, Betsy. So anyways, so I started asking questions and digging into it, and I found out some very interesting information. First of all, I didn't just study policy, but I got into my central file, which all prisons have on inmates. Central file is some place that they keep information on an inmate, and we're actually not allowed to photocopy the central file. We're allowed to go into it and read it and take notes, but we're actually not allowed to copy it, which I find very interesting because I would have loved to copy mine. But in my central file, it said I am the greatest severity level. So this is my first AR form that I filed, saying that I have the greatest severity level and please remove it from my file. Okay, so what does the greatest severity level do? Well, that is a public safety factor that the BOP put on me before I was even in prison. So when Grand Prairie designated me, they decided to put this on me so they could put me in a higher security prison. Otherwise, they would have had to send me to a camp. But we all know that the BOP had a hard-on for just throwing us all into as high level of a prison as they could and giving us as much time as they could. And so this public safety factor of the greatest severity level, this is not normal. It's something that isn't applicable to me. And so to prove that, I went into policy at the law library and I printed out the whole custody classification section and started reading it. So now I'm gonna show you a few things. Now, custody classification, that can be found in national policy under 5100.08. And this is where it got me. Being in prison, it actually, you have to pay for every copy you make. And I spent a lot of money printing stuff, but this is the section on custody classification, and I printed it out to read it because then I could use it to prove my case. But also I had very limited time in the law library. Remember, we're kept behind locked doors for most of our day, most of our stay. And so on top of being locked up so often in a cell, the law library is also not open all the time. It's not like they just pop a cell and boom, you can go get on the law library. No, you have to get to the building it's at, and you have to catch a move to do that to get there, and then you're only allowed to stay there for a limited amount of time, and so it makes it very hard to study. So I would do things like print out files so I could take it back to my cell and study it there. And so what I found at the very beginning of this custody classification is that the Grand Prairie out of Texas is the one that designated me to have this put on me so they could send me to Hazleton. And further on into this custody classification section, hopefully we can see this. Here it talks about the custody classification, and in this area right down here, if I can get it in focus, it says the greatest severity offense. And if you can see that red underlining, it says males only. Males only. I am a female, so this doesn't apply. Well, maybe that's just that one section though, right? Maybe I'm missing something. Well, as you keep reading this document, okay, here we have the greatest severity offense description. Greatest severity offense, a male inmate, it's in this blue section here with the red circle in the middle there, a male inmate whose current term of confinement falls into the greatest severity range according to the offense severity scale. And then it gives you an appendix where you can look it up. Okay, again, I'm a female. They can't use this on females. And even if I was a male, this wouldn't be applicable to me anyways. And there's another section in here that it describes it as being a male only thing. Let me check my notes real quick. So page 9, page 14, and page 22. Okay, so I don't know which one I actually showed you, but page 9 and page 14 are kind of the same. It's in a little box where it's greatest severity offense males only under public safety factors. And then it was again here. So I know it's blurry. It's having a hard time focusing, but anyhow, so once I figured this out, that this was not applicable to me, I had to start filing paperwork, the AR process paperwork, and proving that they need to take this off me so I could go to a camp. My stay in prison would have been much, 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 much easier if I was at a camp, because Hazleton, the SFF, the Secure Female Facility in West Virginia at Hazleton, is the worst female facility in the whole United States, and that's where they chose to send me to. And being at a camp is a totally different experience. So I started going back and forth with my counselor and mostly with my unit team manager at the time, which was Officer Zubak. And I filed this form, and Officer Zubak did end up taking the greatest severity level off of me and replacing it with something else that could be used on females that also was applicable to anybody that was involved in a riot. So I couldn't really argue that they put that on me, but that would have made it so I could go to a camp. But it took so many months of me going back and forth and doing paperwork that they didn't take the greatest severity off of me until fall. And by that time, the Supreme Court had already said you can't have the 1512 obstruction charge used on protesters. So then I was waiting to be resentenced. And so the prison just waited to see what was happening with me before they moved me. But if I would, because originally I had a 5-year sentence, or almost 5-year sentence. And so they were going to wait and see what was going to happen with my resentencing. And if I still had time to do after my resentencing, they were going to send me to a camp, not just because they had to now, but also because I think Hazleton didn't really enjoy me being there. But so here you have evidence and proof that the Bureau of Prisons literally put things in our files and put factors on us so they could hold us in prisons where we didn't belong, in places that we shouldn't be. And that's criminal. It's totally criminal and totally negligent. And the fact that it took me months and months of researching and fighting for them to even think about helping me is absolutely disgusting, because this document also makes it clear that the warden at a prison has the ability to change things like this in a person's file and correct errors. And Hazleton just wasn't interested in helping me with that.